So welcome to the third episode of software development, bootstrap software development for bootstrappers, something like this. I'm not sure how to call it. Every time it's fucked up. And in this episode, we will talk about what framework to use on frontend. And me as a non-technical co-founder, I know React, I know Django has some capabilities. So guys, tell me, what should I use and when?
So first of all, as always, I think we have to begin with the requirements of the project. So, so basically, there is like many modern ways to do front end. You associate you can pick a single page framework like React or Vue or anything like that. You can go old school and basically use templates for the server side. It can be inside the Django, it can be inside of any framework, or you can like even pick some most like innovative and cutting edge options, like for example Elixir Livewire, which we can talk about later. But basically, depending on the requirements, you have to select one of these frameworks. And from our experience, like usually, it truly is best if you can start simple. For example, with let's say Django template. You know, if your project allows it, then just pick the most simplest option, which is like server side rendered web page, basically. And depending on the needs, you may actually like right now the general trend is to go basically with as much client side logic with React and stuff as possible. And this is a good trend because it generally does allow you to do some stuff that is just basically not possible with server side frameworks. For example, if you want to write Google Docs or like some really complex CRM system or something like that, React or any other like this big framework can make a lot of sense. But for a small team, let's say if you are just like, for example, two people developing some MVP or bootstrapping project, like we talked about it with Mark a lot, basically the overhead of duplicating like validation and models between React and Django or a backend language and framework, if you are not using Node, is so big that you actually waste quite a lot of time basically just managing, just doing boilerplate between these two systems, you know. So if you can get away with it and just select server side rendered like just standard HTML, you can save a lot of time on the beginning.
Yeah, I would say in general,
Okay, I'm not sure if I
people really like to pick React like every time, or put it everywhere because it's a standard. But I would like to encourage people to really think twice before they are doing it, because it's quite a heavy technology, and sometimes you can just live without it, especially in case of some MVPs.
Yeah, that's something what I was thinking in the beginning, like when I'm really starting my project and I'm not sure, like I, for example, have in mind that it will be actually a huge app one time, and I want a huge investment for it, or maybe not because I'm bootstrapping. If it's good to in the beginning start thinking about this and opt in for example React, and go big, because you will be like, okay, but in the future we will need all these capabilities. Should I start with that? And for example, I know on Serverside, and it was a really hard project because it was already done, so we were rewriting it, but again it was a new project. We opt for this React, but maybe that was because there was no other option.
Basically in Sponsys, I think the Sponsys is actually the great example where you should use React, because it's basically a website builder, which is a real time. And basically, just to understand, guys, like what the Sponsys is, basically on left side, you have a form you fill, and on the right side, you see a real-time preview for the generated website. And just by this description, if you have some front-end experience, you will know there is a lot of interactive elements that has to be on the page. And this is something that is really hard to do, like server-side and with just standard HTML. So this is, for example, a perfect fit for React. If this is your project, then right away start with React. The second, for example, I think great example for React is the welder itself. If you guys use our client, basically it's all interactive. It's all like running client side, so it just makes sense to use some framework like React. But if you are, for example, let's say doing a cart in the e-commerce, or like you are doing product listing, or is it just some simple CRM where you can like input name and get some result, then it may actually make more sense to start with something simple, which is like HTML.
Yeah,
basically.
I would say like even
Yeah, but we actually on Welder, even on Welder, we actually
use, like templates.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say, that even on Welder, we actually used Django for the beginning, for the administration, because in the beginning, it was super easy for us to make the dashboard, the administration that way. It was not nice. It was super simple, but it served the purpose of validating the product.
Yeah, exactly. And like as long as the project is not too big, you can always migrate to React. It's a little bit challenging, you are going to lose some time. That's a fact. But at the same time, you are not going to lose that time at the beginning, where you have to basically duplicate logic and like do a lot of additional work to get React basically working.
Yeah, I would say like in general, always focus on like the time to market. Like how fast you can develop the MVP, and you can really forget about scalability, or what are you going to do in the future. Is this technology too simple for my billion-dollar company, and I'm going to have in a year? Like, don't think about it. Just start with the simplest possible technology, simplest possible approach, and just get there.
Yeah, that's the best approach, even when we are talking about the backend, from what I understood. Also, and also go with what you are actually used to
Yeah,
work in,
like
right?
exactly.
Yeah,
If you know
and
someone,
like
or if you know a technology, always pick that, like what you are good at.
yeah, and also like don't give too much weight to basically, I would call it, I think with Mark we talked about it also, like don't give too much weight to basically like trends and trendy articles basically. Because like few years ago, basically everybody was saying to use React for everything. And if you are not doing it, you were like the weird one. But currently, like in the last I think year or two, the situation is shifting, and people are actually starting to think about when is the right time to use React, when is the right time to use server-side rendering, stuff like that, basically. So this always happens. Like it's always every technology is always hyped for like year two, three. Then people actually discover the problems, and then we actually figure out that the previous solution was not that bad, and we can still use it for some. It still makes sense to use basically in
Yeah,
some situations.
it's also interesting thing. Like, should you, when you are starting a project, uh, your goal is to validate if the market wants it, find your target customer, and it's a software project, a product. Should you go with cutting edge technology?
I think with yeah, definitely no, but I think we have actually like a good example for that because with Mark we read like we like the quote from the Reddit CTO basically, in which he described when you are starting your software startup, you basically, let's say you have like a 10 innovation points basically, and you can spend it on something, and this doesn't exactly have to be 10, like it depends on what you're doing, but basically if you like select a different like innovative database, that's 4 points basically, and you should only spend like these 2 points, and you should be very careful about not selecting like 5 different completely innovative technologies, because you should be really limited. You should almost, your entire stack should be as boring as possible. Like you should use the most major database you can find, the most major framework you can find. You should not use React if possible. If not, then just use it. If you are doing, for example, website builder, then that's the innovation point. But be very careful in like always select the boring technologies, especially for bootstrap companies. But I think this should apply almost like
Yeah, like
in the VC
universal.
founded world too. People are,
But I would say
but
there
people
can be one
on
exception if it's bringing value to your customer. If it's something really like a customer facing
yeah.
from the technological point of view, then yeah, you should use something like that.
Yeah, or it's like the core like breakthrough or the core thing that
Yeah,
makes your
if
product
it's like
alive, then you
your
should use it. But
IP,
I
or if like it's what makes you
Mhm.
different from your competitors, then you can use it. But if it's just something which lives, like somewhere in the background on the server, or nobody really knows what it is from our customers, it
yeah,
doesn't make sense.
I remember this case that happened on our in our own project when we were doing the hackathon, and we were developing a tool for developers that should streamline the creation flow. You guys opt in to use some Lambda stuff. I'm not
Yeah,
sure what it actually was,
yes.
but I remember using it because it was amazing. It was super cool and should help us. And then we spent like 4 days just getting rid of it so the project could work. So I think that's
Yeah,
the
we have
case.
actually opted in for
Um,
like a serverless framework, which we thought should be like the fastest way to get our API running. And yeah, like it was a mistake because it's simple, but only in theory. If you haven't touched that technology, you don't know like its drawbacks. It's really risky to use it during a hackathon or when you are
yeah,
bootstrapping your own project, and it's like really mission critical to have it working.
yeah. All right, so let's do a sum up. What framework should I use? What front-end framework should I use on which project and in which setup?
Like, if it's,
How to put it?
and maybe you can
Yeah, sure.
summarize,
We can
Predrag.
continue.
Like you are the front end dev,
Yeah.
you're most
Yeah,
experienced.
that's true, mate. But I'm writing more backend right now, but it's true. So basically, I think to summarize it, basically, I think you should select the most simplest framework you can find for your project. And what we actually mean by that is that if you can get away with server-side rendering in no React, just use that. If you cannot, then select a popular framework like React, because like it has the most documentation possible. Just I would try to avoid like the different like new kinds of like the same kind of frameworks like React, for example, the more modern ones. But basically select the most popular and the most burning framework you can find and the simplest one. So but it cannot really be said, I think, generally, because as you said with sponses, if you are, for example, doing sponses, you generally cannot use like Django templates or PHP templates, stuff like that. You have to use React basically, but select the simplest one.
Okay, cool. I think I got it. Another learned experience that I knew about, but now I know a bit more about. Thank you guys for watching. If you found this interesting, I will be more than happy if you leave us a comment and let us know your how do you choose your front end framework and why. And yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.
See you. Bye bye.